What's going on, everyone? It's Stitch, and welcome to my first ever modded Minecraft Cozy World Tour. So yeah, this is basically like my girlfriend and I's like quote-unquote forever world, even though it's not really a forever world because there's a bunch of mods in this and we're kind of stuck on the 1.20.1 version because that's with all the mods that we have in this mod pack. That's like the highest version we got. So this is basically our, our forever world. So yeah, this world basically just has like a compilation of a bunch of my major builds and my favorite builds from like myself, like my cousins, my girlfriend and stuff. So yeah, so what you're seeing right now is kind of like I kind of like made everything. The theme of this world is basically like a little fairy tale, like magic, like vibe, and like anime, like movie-esque. So that's the kind of vibe my girl and I were going for. And this is one of like the mods that she installed called the Ribbits mod, and I thought it was really cool. And we have like a bunch of the fairy lights and stuff. So I wanted to make like a cute little like ribbit like village to have that was attached to my home that you guys saw in the beginning. And so I actually connected all these paths together to make everything kind of like cohesive and look kind of natural and blend into the world, but it's all like our builds and stuff. So if you see any like oddly shaped blocks, that's probably because of that. But yeah, so what I wanted to talk about, I don't exactly know what I want to talk about, but I know I've been meaning to make a video. To be honest, I was kind of inspired to make this Minecraft video or kind of get back into like doing commentaries again, because for some reason I feel like whatever it is, whatever For You page algorithm YouTube and like TikTok be using, for some reason I feel like I be seeing like the most random, like perfectly timed video like on like my feed for whatever reason. And a couple of those videos that I'm talking about are like just basic like Minecraft videos and people talking about like life and shit and like purpose and whatever, and just old school like commentary-esque like videos. And to be honest, I've seen like these coming kind of like popping up like again like recently. And what's interesting about it is because I feel like back then, of course, like because Minecraft was such a big game, everyone, a lot of the videos were like content like focused. But now I'm seeing like a lot of people just kind of like using like Minecraft or just like regular like video game gameplay to just like overlay like in the background just to have like something to talk about. And to be honest, that was kind of like the whole point of me starting my YouTube channel, you know what I mean? And yeah, I haven't really been, I haven't like been consistent or whatever, but like this is kind of for me. And obviously I'm not on a schedule, and I have like I had goals regarding YouTube, and I still do. And it's just kind of confusing trying to figure out like what exactly like I want to do, because ever since I was young I've always just really been into like gaming and like video games, and like I've always just wanted to like make like YouTube videos and like some type of content creation, with no real expectation of like becoming like some like influencer or whatever, just talking about like whatever I want and just like chilling and like posting like things that I'm interested in about. And I feel like, to be honest, a big reason why I kind of stopped like doing this is because, to be honest, I wish I could have just kept my my identity like anonymous, and I am still anonymous to everyone else online. But I mean, no shade to like my family or whatever, but like me personally, like I feel like I would be more comfortable to talk about whatever I wanted to and just like be like my genuine self. Like if I knew that like people who are watching my videos didn't know who I was, just call it insecure or whatever, I think it's because, I feel like a lot of people are super judgmental. And I feel like at this point in time in like, my YouTube journey, or I guess you could say, I'm just not like comfortable yet with that, and I don't know. Back when I first started my YouTube channel like 10 years ago or whatnot, on my first YouTube channel, I kind of stopped because of a similar, reason, because I guess like people in my actual like life like found my YouTube channel and were actually watching it. And for some reason I felt like super uncomfortable about like that, because I don't know. I don't know. I was just like an insecure like kid, you know, just wanted to talk about like whatever, just do me. But for some reason, I don't know, just I felt like super like judged or whatever. But like now, you know, who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? So I think the biggest, you know, killer of dreams, to be honest, is that exact like reason, that exact, you know, explanation I just gave to you guys about that fear of judgment of what people in like your real life will think about you, you know. Because one thing is, you know, oh my god, you know, fuck it, whatever, I'm just gonna keep this shit going. It's like 20-30 minutes. But one thing about like YouTube that you don't really realize is that there is so much like to it that you just wouldn't have expected going into like content creation, in terms of just the amount of knowledge you need to know about just video editing in general. I guess what kind, I'm still learning that like currently, like what kind of like, you know, videos do I even want to make, what kind of content do I want to make, what things do I want to talk about, you know. And for me, like I think just talking about life, like psychology like stuff, is just kind of like my niche, and like the, you know, kind of like the basis of like what I kind of just formed my channel around, to be honest. Because back then it was mainly about like, oh man, like I want to be like, you know, this Call of Duty like YouTuber who's like in FaZe, or like Pub Stomper who's just on the leaderboards and who's the best, and everyone's gonna be like, so, you know, like I'm gonna blow up because of my gameplay because I'm so good, you know. Like as a kid, like you think that that was my thinking process back then, you know what I'm saying. And like growing up and realize, like, you know, getting a reality check of life, like no one gives a shit, you know what I'm saying. Like there are levels to this like gaming stuff and just life in general, you know. Like to be like the top 1%, or to be like successful within gaming, you really need to, you know, put a lot, you know, everything into it, put a lot of time in, and a lot of it, you know, is just, you know, comes down to luck and like, you know, preparation and consistency. Not everything's luck for sure, you know. You can create that, you know, those potentially, you know, lucky scenarios just by being consistent and just, you know, doing whatever you want to do, to be honest. And that's kind of like what I'm like, you know, how I'm kind of going into this, you know, new year, and this, you know, I guess revival of my YouTube journey. Because I know I privated some of my commentaries that I first had when I first made this channel, because, you know, to be honest, I just didn't want, you know, some specific people to know about, you know, this channel, or to know about like certain things that I want to talk about. Because, you know, when people in your real life know, you know, I feel like you have to be like kind of filtered, because there are stories I want to talk about, you know, there are just like things I want to talk about that, you know, a lot of people just can, you know, I feel like are very sensitive, you know, in terms of influence and influential ability. And of course, you guys, you know, you guys wouldn't want to, you know, I guess for me, I feel like I wouldn't want just the stories or whatever the content I want to talk about and like post about, I wouldn't want that to negatively impact, you know, my, I guess, you know, reputation with the people I know in real life, because I feel like they don't know about some of these things I've gone through that I do want to talk about. But at the same time, these things are also like really crazy life experiences that I feel like people would enjoy hearing about, or just, you know, someone might actually relate to, because I've gone through some real ass shit, to be honest, you know what I'm saying. And, you know, I feel like everyone has, you know, everyone can honestly like have an outlet to just tell their story. And I think that's what, you know, content creation and YouTube is about, you know. And to be honest, I kind of just, you know, like using these, you know, YouTube as an outlet to kind of just have somewhere where I could look back to see like, you know, listen to like an old version of myself and see where I was, and, you know, just see how I grow as a person, and just see like, you know, the type of person I am, you know. So this is kind of like an update video of where I'm at, you know, because I did that last time when I first started this channel, and then I kind of just like fell off because, you know, I feel like I just really like did not want, you know, people in my life knowing, but they already know. So I'm still deciding whether or not I want to create a new YouTube and start from scratch to be like super anonymous, or like, you know, to honestly, I feel like I just want to be like my true self and like not care, you know what I'm saying? Like I really don't care if people like judge me, but at the same time, you know, you never know what kind of influence, you know, you could have on like, you know, people who who listen to like, what you say or like consume like your content. You know what I'm saying? That's the only reason why. And I think I have a plan on how I'm gonna, move forward with this, because I don't want to just be like, not talking about and doing the things I want to do because, of that, just because I, feel like I won't be anonymous and people will know who I am. Because honestly, I don't really have, anything to hide in my life, because the experiences I've gone through have taught me like lessons in life, and are honestly canon to, be where I'm at right now. And I feel like just with that, like that being like that fact, like I'm not really ashamed of like the things I've gone through. But at the same time, I feel like I'm just not at that point yet, like in terms of readiness of people, or like, some people in my life to know everything about me, or to know a whole nother side of me that like, they probably like, will change the entire outlook of who I am, to be honest. But I don't really care. Here I am, I'm doing it. I'm talking to this microphone over some Minecraft gameplay. And yeah, so this time last year, I was kind of, it was over a Call of Duty video, but I did a commentary on kind of like where, I was at life, and kind of talking about how I wanted to do like an update, like in the future. And, in terms of comparison, last year, I was, for those of you that know, I was struggling, I've been struggling to get a job within my, like full-time career, like for like almost damn near 2 years. And recently I finally got, a full-time job and an offer starting in the beginning of January, which is kind of why, I wanted to post this video to kind of like update, myself, and just look back on, just, I don't know, just to kind of compare, to see where I'm at, in terms of progress. Because back then, I was really, perspective is everything, and being unemployed can really, impact, how you perceive like your own value, to be honest, especially in today's day and age. But I guess because now I have like some type of like boost to kind of just open up and like talk about like myself, even though, I feel like I haven't really, accomplished what I wanted to accomplish yet. I feel like now I have like some momentum in terms of, my self-worth, because of like, just recently landing a freaking full-time job after 2 years of freaking hunting for this full-time offer. But, they say, the best opportunities in life come when you least expect it. And to be honest, like the story of how I got this full-time job and, how it's gonna go is kind of crazy, because I literally came when I least expected it. So to preface, like I basically just got this job at, actually I didn't know if I should say where, but as a data analyst / like coordinator role, like within like it's kind of like an accounting role in business at this company, right? But this like basically like a month ago, I was just sitting on my couch reading a book, this book I've been reading recently called Atomic Habits, which is a 10 out of 10, by the way, highly recommend. But I was just sitting on my couch reading that book, with my dog like on my lap and shit, and then I get this like call, and it looked like a scam number, so I just like ignored it. But then I get that voice message that it was this person from XYZ company, and I was like, oh shit, like I thought it was just, like I better call this person back, but like to be honest, like when I was about to call that person back, I had like extreme like doubt like within myself, to be honest, because when I obviously like like being rejected from a job isn't the end all be all, because they go through a million applicants, but after some time you're gonna I feel like it's normal for it to start affecting like your confidence and whatnot, and it was one of those times where it was like, oh my gosh, like is this actually happening right now? Because I applied to this place like multiple times, and for this role, like they actually got back to me, so I'm not complaining. And but long story short, I gave the person a call back, and they basically asked if I was down to come in for an in-person interview the following day, and I was like, bet, like I'm down. To be honest, I was kind of just going with the flow. Maybe it wasn't exactly the position I wanted, but to be honest, everything worked out. It was honestly better than what I would have been making, entry level within my field. And it opens up like a bunch of doors for me within my field too. So my foot's already in the door. I start sometime in the beginning, middle of January. So that's what I've been looking forward to. But this entire like process kind of just changed my life in a complete like 180 overnight. you know, because I went from, you know, this routine of just being at home. Oh my gosh, sorry, there's an overlay of the sound. But this routine of just being at home, you know, trying to get a job for, you know, the longest time, you know, and having this, you know, routine where I, you know, I study, I apply, I go to the gym, XYZ, I repeat, you know what I'm saying? Just apply, just keep doing the same thing over and over again, you know. And after, you know, a long time, that shit gets freaking boring, you know. It literally made me lose my, oh my gosh, like, you guys don't understand how much, you know, actually like doing something, you know, with your life is giving your life like the fulfillment like it needs, you know. Because yeah, it sounds, you know, all fun and games when you don't have any like reason to get up in the morning. You just get up, you do whatever you have like in your day, you have nowhere to clock into, you know. You kind of just have that almost excuse of, not excuse, let me rephrase that, because unemployment is not an excuse, because it was not a choice, you know. It was just like how the situation I was in and this economy is, you know. But now that I'm out of it, you know, oh my gosh, there's like this weight like off my shoulders, and I feel like my perspective on myself is like kind of coming back, you know, and gaining my confidence back little by little. Because, you know, I graduated, I got my degree, you know, and finally, you know, after 2 years, my degree is like doing something, you know, and I get to start, you know. Yeah, I'm like super anxious because I'm going from like kind of just doing nothing other than like self like study, like self like improvement, to this like regimen of like, you know, of like professionalism in an entry level role at this, I'm not gonna say where, because, you know, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, you know, about this pretty big company, you know. And I don't know, I feel like my brain is just like not knowing how to process like this, you know. So I figured I may as well just, you know, hop on this mic and just, you know, commentate and talk over some gameplay, like, you know, because this is what I made this channel for, and I gotta stick to it, you know. One thing I realized, that there's really like no pressure to perform like really in front of like a specific audience, because this is kind of, you know, YouTube and the videos that you make all come down to just you and what you want to do and like your values, your beliefs. So, you know, there shouldn't be any pressure into like, you know, looking or like, you know, being perceived as like this, you know, type of like YouTuber, or like this, you know, having this level of, you know, I guess charisma that you see all these other YouTubers have, and, you know, just trying to like mirror them instead of just being naturally and authentically like you know what I'm saying? Like, when I was younger, I would always like, you know, I would look up to like these like, you know, YouTubers like, you know, like Dan TDM, like, you know, a lot of these Call of Duty YouTubers, Captain Sparkles, all of them, you know. And I would just like, dang, like, you know, these guys have like so much like energy, like, you know, they have so much passion for this game, and it makes like the commentaries and videos like enjoyable, you know. Like, they would just be reviewing like Minecraft mods or doing like a Minecraft like let's play. And, you know, what I didn't realize back then is that those people were just doing the things that they were interested in, you know. And what they were interested in were whatever they were posting, whether it be that Minecraft mods, or, you know, let's plays, or just, you know, trying to, I don't know, just put themselves out there, you know, instead of just trying, like, you know, what I meant to say was, or what I meant to include was also just like trying to connect with their viewers, or just anyone whose content that, you know, that they be, you know, catered towards. So, and I also wanted to include that, you know, try to create your own sense of, you know, self-identity, you know, in terms of your content and who you are on YouTube, instead of, and by that I'm mainly just like kind of like talking to myself, you know, outside looking in, because I think for a long time, you know, I've always just thought of, you know, I've always had this like heart like urge, I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say. I've always just been pulled towards, you know, I guess content creation, or like, you know, outputting some type of, you know, myself in terms of, I don't know, anything, you know, especially like art related, or like, you know, video like related, you know. And with today's day and age, and especially social media now, you can do literally whatever you want, you know. There's so many different niches that, you know, you can get involved in. And especially like nowadays, seeing these people post these just life talks over some Minecraft or Call of Duty is, it's kind of wholesome, even though, like, to be honest, I've been seeing a lot of just, actually, I kind of want to like talk about this too, but I've noticed a lot of like, these Minecraft like videos. I'm not gonna like, tag anyone, but like, it's, a lot of like men or like, or women, trying to just like talk about, not just like trying to talk about, but like talking about like, their like current struggles. And I've noticed a lot of people have been, relating to it, because there've been like these videos have been blowing up. And, to sum them up, it's basically like just people talking about how, like they're depressed, they don't know where they are, lost in your 20s, what you should do, the things you should do, the mistakes you should avoid, this and that, because I think just as a society and just like, over time growing up, a lot of us grow up like, especially if you grew up in that, that age of like gaming and Minecraft, we all grew up together, and just seeing how social media has evolved since then is, it's kind of crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, now everything is kind of just like short attention span, TikTok, format, type of, dopamine, like instant, like dopamine hitting like videos and content. And I don't know, I guess back then I was able to just like sit through like, I guess a 10 plus, minute video of like just some gameplay of just someone, talking over some, doing like a live commentary or something. And now, I feel like a lot of us kind of like look towards social media, not just for like entertainment anymore, to be honest, because, I'm sure a lot of us have, grown up, and it's, even though it is still for a form of entertainment. And I think the difference between like, I guess being like a kid and like being grown up is that, looking towards, social media and the internet as a sense of, as a place of knowledge, and a place where you can, connect or like learn things instead of just brain rot. Because, I'm sure a lot of you guys, fall in this same boat. You have that, that TikTok brain rot meme life, that I guess social media has kind of evolved into, because all these like memes and like instant dopamine, like forms of content that are so like readily available to everyone, just the average person. I'm sure every 99% of, the human race doom scrolls. I promise you that everyone who has had social media has probably experienced something like that, and it's important to also like know how to like manage that and like control that, and just not let all of, I guess, falling into that, I guess, cycle of just, dopamine, random information that, is not going to serve you, random facts that, really like don't matter, freaking Jake Paul, freaking whoever knows like what he's doing, keeping up with it, like all this shit, none of this matters. Who, like, your favorite TikToker does not know you, your favorite YouTuber, like, like none of this stuff, is really relevant to like, as consumers, our own life, yet we're always consuming it 24/7, which brings me to, my latest predicament of, hopefully, if you're not like me, then hopefully you wouldn't have related to that statement. But if you are like me, I am like, I'm not ashamed to admit that I have fallen into, that victim of, falling into that doom scroll cycle where you're just wasting time. I can't tell you how much, I've looked back on like, a lot of like the time I've had, just alive, and I'm like really just like straight up just on my phone looking at random ass shit, for no reason. You could, one thing I've realized is you could either, spend all this time on your phone being connected, learning, new skills, developing things, creating things, or you could be, just consuming mindless like content, which could be, contributing to just like bad behaviors, the things, making you into the person, that, you don't want to be, letting yourself, get influenced by all this, negative content and negative media, when we really shouldn't be, that closely like, attached to, the internet, because as a human species, we were kind of just meant to, be running around, hunting and gathering, surviving, staying alive, not, consuming, all of this random ass, these random TikTok trends, these random, like, keeping up with the latest streamers or whatever, or whatever trend. I feel like the average person nowadays is somewhat influenced, or is somewhat, affected by these, I guess, negative behaviors that, have been normalized by social media, and like, I sound like a hypocrite talking because, this is my life story, which is why I'm trying to change my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, even with all this, like, I'm just speaking in like generalizations, obviously, like, I don't think I'm all these things, you know what I'm saying? I've accomplished a lot of things, I feel like I've built, myself into a pretty respectable person that I'm proud of, but I'm still constantly trying to like, evolve and like develop myself. And it's so, I don't know, I'm sure you guys can like relate to it. Like, sometimes I just like think and like, I'm like, dang, like, why couldn't I like have been doing like this instead, or have like learned this instead, or have done this instead, when I go back, and think about, doing that, it's like, what did I do? Nothing, literally like nothing. Something about, instant gratification is that it will, negatively, rewire your brain into functioning in a way that's, suboptimal, or counterproductive, because your brain is always seeking just like these feelings of, I guess, dopamine, these feelings of feeling happy, feeling good, instead of, whatever natural feeling you're supposed to get from whatever situation that, you're in, you know what I'm saying? And this is probably something I'm gonna, talk about more on like later topics and later commentaries about, my life, and, when I open up later on. But yeah, this is kind of, I kind of just wanted to let out some thoughts, kind of give an update for my YouTube, and for myself, just so I can look back and, kind of just, start getting, practicing, getting myself out of my comfort zone, because I want to like, improve on, I guess, like, not public speaking, because I'm just speaking by myself in a room, like, but I guess just, speaking like, to myself, or just like communicating, in general, because commentating is, a difficult task, to be honest. Like, if you haven't tried it, it is like the most awkward thing, but it's low-key kind of fun, and it's kind of like, enjoyable to do, even though I don't really know what I'm doing, you know what I'm saying? I'm just kind of just, putting my thoughts out into the world, and writing, creating my story, I guess, because my own life, the entirety of my life will only be in my memories, and I'd at least, with this YouTube channel, hope to, I don't know, I guess, expand, some, I guess, not expand, but like just put myself out there more, or just like create, have something, to put my name on, that I did, that people can like, look at, or not just for the sake of people looking at it, mainly for myself, but I guess just, with hopes that this will help, myself, my future self, or help someone. I know I have a lot to improve on, because, I'm kind of just like venting and ranting, and I'm not as structured, but I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to create like a regimen. Oh shit, baby. Sorry about that. My girl just walked in on me, but yeah, back to what I was saying. Yeah, I've been, I'm slowly just trying to get back into it. I guess with all that's been happening in my life recently, it's created a lot of momentum, and I guess just, I don't want to give up on this hobby of mine, or this dream of mine, of just like creating content. I know it kind of like, it doesn't give me anything, really in return, other than like my own like kind of happiness and like, self-fulfillment, which is, why I'm doing this in the first place. And I kind of encourage everyone who's listening to this to do something of this nature, to just use your creativity and try to do something, out of your comfort zone, because why not? You only live once. I don't care. If I'm freaking 20, I'm 26. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if I'm still playing Minecraft or Call of Duty. I'm going to be playing Minecraft and Call of Duty until I'm old and dead. Because these games are goated, and if you disagree with it, then you can go jump off a bridge or something. It's like, just kidding. But if you made it this far in the video, thanks for sticking around and listening to what I have to say. Hopefully you guys have a great new year. Remember, there's nothing wrong with having New Year's resolutions every year. Even though every year we should always be like consistently like striving towards something, and we should never wait for a certain like day, like January 1st. It's still also like nice to always still set goals and kind of have like a fresh start, or like an activation day where you're gonna get things started. There's nothing wrong with that. And try to get in the gym. I'm a huge proponent of that. Eventually I'm going to talk about a lot about my experience with the gym and some advice I have, and just a bunch of stuff coming in the near future that I have ideas I'm talking about and creating content around. So thanks again for listening, and I'm going to end this video with one of my favorite quotes, and that quote is that 1 week is almost 2% of the year, or 1 week is 2% of the year. So let's lock in this 2026. Hopefully that puts things into perspective, how time waits for nobody. So 2026 is the year to lock in, guys. So I hope everyone has a happy new year, and peace out.